Vladimir is the first pick that comes to mind when you're thinking of a hyperscaling mage that plays relatively safe throughout the laning phase. I've been playing a lot of Vladimir lately and I've really been enjoying it. If you're able to take this absolute monster into the late game, you're practically able to 1v5, and so today I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to get through the laning phase, as well as some of the things that you should be abusing on Vladimir. Now before we get too far into the video, have you checked out our website yet? Over at GameLeap.com, we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. It's one of the best learning tools out there, so if you're looking to improve your play, make sure to sign up today. Now if we're going to talk about Vladimir, we've got to start with his bread and butter, that being his Q. Now, Vladimir's Q is his main source of sustain, and therefore you're going to want to be spamming it every time it is off of cooldown. Now, every time that you use your Q, you're going to get a stack towards Crimson Rush. Now, after getting 2 stacks, the Q is slowly going to decay, giving you movement speed and empowering your next Q. You only have a few seconds to use it before it fades, so make sure you are using that empowered Q whenever possible because it will deal more damage and heal you for more. Now there are a lot of different tips and interactions with this ability. For instance, if you're looking for upfront damage, you want to be using the empowered Q as soon as possible. However, if you are using the movement speed portion of the empowered Q, then you want to hold it for as long as possible. Now you don't get this movement speed while in your E or your W. However, there is a different interaction with the empowered Q and your E and W. Whenever you are channeling your E in your pool or in Zonias, your empowered Q will tick down slower. You can use this fact to extend the threat duration that you have against other players. If your Q is empowered, then other players are not going to want to walk up towards you. You can use your E to keep that duration up for longer, meaning players are going to have to stay further away from you for longer. Now, I also want to go over how you should be comboing because I see so many Vladimirs do it backwards and they're just missing out on so much healing. What I'll see a lot of the time is a full HP will start with their Q and then channel their E. This is completely backwards because the longer you channel your E, the more HP that it consumes, meaning you're going to need that healing from your Q afterwards. Now, if you're not full HP, then it doesn't really matter, but ideally, especially later on into the game, you should be pretty much always topped off on health. The only reason you wouldn't be is if you are using your abilities in the wrong order. This can be to clear waves on enemy champions, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Also keep in mind that you can cast your Q during your E channel duration. Now, this will cancel the channel on your E and cause it to cast a few frames later. However, the thing to keep in mind here is that your Q is going to land before the E. This is important because it means that you can use your E on waves and one-shot those waves while still being allowed to use your Q to heal you up after using your E. This is useful for when your E is going to kill the target but you still want the healing from your Q. This allows you to use the AoE on your E without losing all that HP that you normally would. Now, similar to that Q, you can use your R during your E as well. It will cost the E to cast, but the R will go down first. The full combo that you're going to want to look for if you are going to drop everything is you channel your E, then you QR as fast as possible. This is the fastest and least clunky animation. If you aren't able to do it quick enough, then you can go ERQ, but EQR is better. Your R will still land before either the Q or the E does, so everything will be amplified, but it's just a little bit faster and smoother. Now you can also flash during this combo, which makes Vladimir's engage range insane. He can hit an entire team with this as well. This is a mechanic that you're going to have to master if you want to be playing Vladimir. I would highly encourage testing out all of these things in practice tool before even going into a game with them. If you are able to spend 15 to 20 minutes just testing these things out in practice tool, I guarantee you're going to be a lot more comfortable on Vladimir and using these combos in game. Now, the next thing that I do want to go over is going to be build paths. There are 2 different build paths that you can go on Vladimir right now. You can either go heavy AP or you can go CDR. With heavy AP, your goal is to one-shot people as fast as possible, and you're going to be looking at items like Death Cap and Spellbinder Rush. This build is viable on Vladimir simply because of his passive. He gets so much AP from these items and it converts into a lot of health, making him a little bit tankier than most mages would be. Now this build is pretty much only good if they don't have any tanks or heavy CC on their team. If they are full squishy with a low amount of CC, you can go this build, instantly blow up an entire team, and get out really easily after killing everyone. If they have more CC or they're tankier, then I would highly recommend going a CDR based build. With this build, you're going to be going Fiendish Codex into Kindle Gem into Ionic Boots of Lucidity. This paired with Cosmic Insight and Transcendence will give you an early 45% CDR, allowing you to spam Qs even more, get more ease, and have your pool up a lot more often. You then want to finish the Kindle Gem into a Hextech Protobelt and the Fiendish Codex into a Zonia's. After that, most people go Deathcap into Spellbinder or Void Staff, depending on whether or not they have MR. This still rounds out the build really well, you're just not able to teamfight nearly as quickly as if you were to go the heavy AP build. So now that you actually know these tips for Vladimir and what you should be building in certain different scenarios, let's talk about how you should actually be playing the laning phase so that you can get to that late game. For the most part in the early lane phase, you're just going to want to look to farm. Your cooldowns are long, you don't have a great amount of damage, and you're not the safest champion in the world, especially before you're even able to get your pool. If you do get ganked or take a hard trade and you're forced to blow that pool, it's a very, very long cooldown, so you want to be using it as little as possible. This is why farming it out until you're able to get some CDR or levels is the best way to approach the laning phase. Remember, Vladimir outscales pretty much every other mage in the game, so if you are able to get to that late game, your chances of winning are pretty high. There's no need to rush things or play over aggressive in the lane. It's okay to just play safe and go 0-0 and farm. Patience is key to this champion. Make sure to avoid unnecessary deaths so that the enemy mid or top laner does not snowball out of control and end the game before you're able to get to that late game power spike. As far as managing the wave, if you are able to get wave control, that's fantastic. I highly recommend freezing if you are able to. This is because Vladimir isn't really able to take plates on his own all too well. If you are able to force the enemy laner base, then cool, you might be able to get a plate or two, but you're not going to be looking at 5 plates every single game. That's just not really realistic. What you can do though is you can freeze and play up in the enemy laner's face while being closer to your tower. This will quickly build a massive CS lead, allowing you to go into the side lane later on into the game and get an EXP lead on top of it. The more gold and EXP that you have on the enemy laner, the better. Just be sure you're not too obsessed with side laning on Vladimir because it is very important for you to show up to important objectives like Baron or Dragon. Your team fighting is so good, both with your own damage and the damage amplification on your ultimate. On top of this, your split pushing is not great. You're not going to be melting towers or anything. The only reason you're in the side lane is so that you can get that solo golden EXP. Grouping at Dragon and Baron is one of your best shots to get a massive team fight from Vladimir and just win the game off of that. Now, if the enemy team is just turtling under their tower, that's okay too because Vladimir also excels at diving. With his pool and his Zonias, he's able to juggle aggro insanely well, better than pretty much any other mage in the entire game. If you are looking to tower dive on Vladimir, keep in mind that it should only be utilized as a final resort. There are other, better, safer ways to be playing him in the late game, and you don't want to be accidentally throwing the game by tower diving something that you're not actually able to pull off. On top of this, tower dives require quite a bit of coordination between your team, so you might accidentally drop aggro onto a target that doesn't want it, and then your ADC has aggro and they die under the tower. It's generally just safer to not tower dive if you can afford it. If you have to force a tower dive, that's fine, just make sure you're not doing it unnecessarily. My preferred way to close out a game is by forcing a fight to happen at Baron, wiping the enemy team, taking Baron, and then pushing down mid. My preferred rune page is Sorcery Primary and Inspiration Secondary. I take Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Transcendence, and Gathering Storm. In Inspiration, I take Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight, and this will just allow me to hit 45% CDR while still having a lot of movement speed, getting in and out of fights pretty easily. Alternatively, you can go an electrocute page. You can take whatever it is you want really in the domination tree, and whatever you want secondary as well. Either go sorcery for Nimbus Cloak or inspiration for magical footwear and cosmic insight. It's up to you. Most people do run phase rush, and again, that's what I personally would recommend. That's about all that I have for you on some of the more advanced tips on Vladimir. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check it out using the link in the description below. As always, I'm Panther. I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.